I hit start recording, so should be, yeah, good to go.
Great. Well, welcome to the launch of the Chicago Sustainability Challenge. My name is Chola Gupta. I work with the Chicago Public Education Fund. And then over the next 1 hour, you're going to learn more about the challenge, how you can get involved, organizations that are part of this, and why Microsoft is collaborating with ChangeX on this challenge. If you are, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, so if you're in a place where you can mute yourself, that might help. If you have questions as we go through the presentation, just put them in the chat. As Paul said, it's sort of on the top right, there's a chat icon, and if you click on that, just put your questions there. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end where we'll sort of put those questions out to the broader group. As you may have heard, if you joined a few minutes ago, this is going to be recorded with folks who couldn't make it. So just know that ahead of time. So I know the ChangeX team, and I'm really excited that they're bringing this challenge to Chicago. People who are in Chicago know that Chicagoland is home to incredible natural resources. We have forests, we have prairies, we have wetlands, we have all of our water bodies. I do not like the lake in the winter, but I really, really do like it in the summer. To preserve these natural resources, the city has to turn to the other resource we have, which is our incredible people. I have been here in Chicago for 5 years. I know that does not make me a Chicagoan, but I've had an opportunity to meet lots of people across the city. And what I've learned is that Chicagoans are innovative, they are resilient, and they're fiercely protective of their city. I came across a quote in Inc. magazine that basically said, where Silicon Valley attracts the most brilliant technologists and New York City attracts those who value big living and opulence, Chicago attracts the get shit done, no nonsense leaders. I think that's the hallmark of the city. So
speak.
confident that it's these leaders who are going to help us bring innovative new solutions that make our city more livable and sustainable. Since we're a little bit behind on time, I'm going to turn it over to Paul O'Hara, the founder and CEO of ChangeX, and let him introduce what's happening in Chicago. What is ChangeX? Paul?
Excuse me, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Life is good.
Is this Dara?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Now that we can hear you, we need you to go on mute, but you can come back later on. That's brilliant.
If everybody can mute just while not speaking, that'd be great, just so we don't get any background noise.
That's fantastic, Dara.
Hi, everyone. Paul O'Hara here, calling from the ChangeX office in Dublin. We're very excited to be launching in Chicago today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to ChangeX and also my own family connection to Chicago. So my family originate in a very small island off the coast of the west coast of Ireland called Ironmore Island in County Donegal, and there was a big migration of people from that island to Chicago over the years, and my own grandfather and aunt migrated from the island to Chicago in 1958. So my grandfather spent 5 years there working, and then my aunt subsequently stayed for the rest of her life. So she lives in Elgin now. She's a retired nurse and has a load of kids and grandkids, so has raised a family there. So I still get back to Chicago to meet them every now and then, but very excited to be launching ChangeX in a city that has kind of some heritage for me. And we all grew up as kids wearing Bulls and Bears and different Chicago teams gear. So it was probably like our #1 city as kids growing up in the west of Ireland. So a little bit about ChangeX. We're a few years old. The background was some of us came from an organization called Ashoka, which was an investment fund for social entrepreneurs, and we were investing in social entrepreneurs all over Europe and excited about the potential for these ideas to spread internationally. But the truth was very few of them did successfully spread internationally. And I always found it such a waste of good ideas. And so the idea behind ChangeX was, could we package up all of the ideas that are working successfully in a number of different communities and make them available to other communities to adopt and adapt to their own setting if they feel like those ideas are relevant to their own context. So that was kind of the idea for ChangeX. We launched in a very rural community in the west of Ireland a few years ago. We've got like pretty good scale in Ireland. We've had thousands of local groups starting ideas off ChangeX across Ireland over the last few years. And then backed by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, we launched in Minnesota. So we have an office in Minneapolis, St. Paul, not far from Chicago, led by Jen Aspengren there. And so we're very excited to be partnering with Microsoft to launch ChangeX and this challenge of spreading different sustainability ideas in both Arizona, which launched a few weeks ago very successfully, and now today Chicago. So in Arizona, just to give you a little bit of context, we'd aimed to try and get 25 projects active within a year. And so we're already well underway. There's 4 projects up and running. There's another 23 who've had funding allocated that are working their way through what we call a 30-day challenge. So we're well on track in Arizona. And in Chicago, actually, we had to test digital ads yesterday for about 5 minutes. And believe it or not, we had 3 applications in the 5 minutes that we tested the ads. So we think that demand is going to be significant for this in Chicago, which is encouraging. So let me just tell you a little bit more about the challenge. So it's launching today. So it's now effectively live. We have 12 different ideas, some from Chicago region, some from across the US, and some international ideas. There's $70,000 of funding available thanks to the Microsoft Data Center community team. And the grant sizes range from $500 to $5,000, depending on the kind of nature of the idea, the complexity of the idea. And we're aiming to get 25 new projects, at least, up and running in the Chicago region over the coming months. So the focus is Chicago, and the overall theme is sustainable communities. And you can see there on the slide, for those of you who can see the visual, it links into a number of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so we'll report back on how this project overall contributes to that. So that's just a kind of a top line introduction, and my colleague Neve will go through in a little bit more detail how it all works. But first I'll hand it back to Shaula. You might be muted, Shaula, I don't know.
Yeah, Shaula, I think you're still on mute. Can't hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, Holly, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. You want to come back to?
Okay, and we can come back to her because these are my slides. So I'll jump in here if that's okay. My name is Holly Beale, and I lead environmental sustainability for our data center community development team. So why are we partnering with ChangeX on this initiative? Well, we at Microsoft want to empower the communities where we operate to be more environmentally sustainable, and we want to be a positive contributing member to those communities. I'm on the data center community development team, so we look at the communities where we have data centers and how we can contribute positively and be part of that ecosystem in the community. So we're trying different approaches. This is, as we said, our second location partnering with ChangeX to do a challenge like this, which Neve will go through more on what the challenge is. But just wanted to give you some background on the impetus of why we're doing this. We want to build strong communities through partnership and engagement. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that our data center community development team, we really look at what are the community needs for where we have our data centers. We want to do projects with the community rather than at the community. So we want to really partner with the community, see what the needs are and how we can play a part. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see our 4 different pillars for the community development team. One is on community empowerment funding, so that is supporting local nonprofits in the work that they do. We have an affordable broadband program that is ensuring that those in our data center communities have internet access. It's surprising how many people live near these massive infrastructures of our data centers powering the world's cloud and they don't have internet. So that's another focus of our team. Another is on workforce development, so ensuring that we can hire locally and hire into our data centers from the local community, but then also over provisioning on that to just enable those in the community to have the skills for the new world of work. And then my program is environmental sustainability. So looking at different sustainability related projects in the community, whether that's water projects, tree projects, it could be renewable energy projects. And so traditionally, I've kind of worked with nonprofits and groups and had these big signature projects, but we want to now try for this more grassroots type of approach through ChangeX. Which again, we'll go through in a minute how that's going to look. But if you go one more slide, my last slide, this is some examples from the past year. I started the program about a year ago, so we're just getting it up and running. But I'm happy to go into, if you want to reach out after the call, some more of the projects that we've done across the world. But again, they've been these more bigger type of projects that take that I've been running, but we want to really give the power to the people in the community. Say, what do you want to do? Let's empower you to take control of some projects in your area, and we'll give you the tools and resources to make it happen. But we're really excited to launch this in Chicago. So that is my piece, and now is it Neve talking more about how it works? Or Chala, we couldn't hear you before when you were
Sorry,
talking.
that was,
There you
can
go.
you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, we can.
I think Adam.
Yeah, we
is
might
also
just
on the line.
hear from Adam.
Yes, so we should hear from Adam, who is in Florida right now, as we heard, and missing the only spring day that Chicago is likely to have this season. So, Adam, do you want to take it away?
So words that I very rarely hear is that we need to hear from Adam. So that was really nice of you. So let me just kind of give you the local perspective on this. I can see that a lot of people on the call here are from Microsoft. And those of you who have been with Microsoft for a while, or even those not from Microsoft that have been watching, I'm sure you've noticed the cultural transformation is happening across the company, and it's been truly helping us deliver on our mission. And for those of you not familiar with it, our mission is to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And even if you're relatively new to the company, perhaps the company's culture was one of those things that drove you to join us. Part of our culture is that we cultivated a growth mindset. We also embrace diversity and inclusion. We work as one Microsoft to make a bigger difference in the world. And if you think about all of those things, they all start locally. And in July, I'm going to be joining Microsoft Philanthropy. So I did some research on, how do they really define employee engagement? And they actually have an employee engagement mission, which is very well aligned to our company mission, which is to empower employees to deepen impact through participating in the causes that Microsoft cares about when they align with your personal point of view, or when they align with what you are compassionate about. People, myself, probably a great example of this, people who live in the Chicago area get really, really excited when that kind of opportunity falls in our backyard. And, we love this region. We see the opportunities. I speak for Mary when I say that Mary and I both get questions all the time. How can I help give back, routinely? So what Holly and the great team at ChangeX have put together really resonated with us because it's enabling us to curate the kind of employee volunteer experience that we've always wanted to see and allow us to apply our passion, our best thinking, in a way that is a very, very unique opportunity for us. And it's just the kind of thing, by the way, the options that we have. These are the kinds of things that get noticed by the community. Our data centers are a little cryptic and stuff, and they may not get noticed by the community, but these kinds of things do. So let me just wrap this up by, first of all, thanking Holly and the ChangeX team for pulling this all together. And then thanking you, everybody on the call, for your willingness to volunteer to make the Chicagoland area better.
Great. Thank you, Adam, and Holly and Paul for sort of grounding us all in that frame. I know everyone's probably excited to hear about the actual details of the challenge and what it entails and how you can support it. So I'm going to hand it over to Neve McKenna, who's the co-founder and head of impact at ChangeX. Neve, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Charla. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, as Charla said, my name is Neve. Usually I would be with the team in Dublin, but I'm actually in Spain, in Granada today, which is very nice and quite a bit hotter, I think, than it is in Dublin right now. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly talk you through the challenge, and then we have lots of the social innovators and the nonprofits that we partner with on the line who are going to tell you a little bit more about the ideas that are part of this challenge, because the challenge would be nothing at all without the other organizations that we partner with. So this is the challenge landing page. So this is what you'll see when you go on there. How it works is that you select an idea, so one of 12 ideas, and you register to get your own project page on ChangeX. You then use that project page to complete a 30-day challenge. And so there's a number of steps involved in the 30-day challenge. The most important one is submitting a photo of your team and also sharing your action plan at the end. So the first couple of things you need to do are have a call with someone from the ChangeX team, build your own organizing team, so to make sure that you have enough people to help you get the project off the ground. And then once you submit your photo and your plan, you can unlock the funding, which will allow you to get your project up and running. So each idea is allocated different amounts of funding, ranging between $500 and $5,000, depending on what the need is for activating that idea. So who can apply? So anyone can apply who wants to start one of these ideas to improve their local community. They're probably going to be someone who's passionate about building sustainable communities in Chicago. And it can be an individual or a local group or a local nonprofit. Just if it is an individual, they just have to form a small team, like I said. And then what you get some seed funding to actually get your idea started. You also get a free resource pack, which has a 5-step guide and various other resources that will help you get the idea off the ground. And then once your project is actually up and running, you unlock the final amount of funding, which is a smaller amount. So that's 30% of the total fund. And that will help to sustain the idea over time and cover any additional costs as the project gets up and running. So that's a very quick overview of how it works. Then the most important thing is what the various projects are. So they're all under the broad sustainability theme. Issue areas like biodiversity, water, plastics, waste, food. So like I said, we actually have quite a few people on here who are the people behind these ideas. And I know there's a couple of people who need to run in about 5 minutes. So I'm actually going to call on them first. Have we got Michael Kelly there from Grow It Yourself? Yeah. Do you want to just quickly tell us a little bit about Grow It Yourself?
If I could, that'd be great. So yeah, I'm here at the moment in Waterford in the southeast of Ireland. So really glad to be here, and hello everybody. So I'm the founder of an organization called GIY, which started here about 10 years ago. And basically our idea is to get people to grow some of their own food as a way to live more sustainably and live hopefully a healthier and happier life also. So my own story, I started growing my own food almost by accident back in my late 20s, early 30s. And I was, ironically enough, I was working in the IT industry at the time. And just got bitten by the bug by growing some of my own food. And I suppose what I saw was the impact it had on my own life, even though I was very bad at growing my own food when I started, and some would say still am. But I was, even though I was only growing maybe 10% of the food that I eat, it completely changed my connection with food and my interactions with food and understanding of food. So it affected the other 90% of the food that I was buying. And then what I suppose what I realized was that there was nothing out there in the community that I could join to get better at growing food and to connect with other people to share that journey. So I started what we called a GIY group, a Grow It Yourself group here in Waterford in 2009, and very quickly, like all of the simple ideas, it replicated and spread very quickly around Ireland. And we've been on the ChangeX platform almost since the beginning. And I guess as we've grown across Ireland and the UK and beyond, ChangeX has given us a great platform to do very exciting things like launch DIY groups in Arizona and Chicago and so on. So we're absolutely delighted to be part of it. And to give you a sense of, I guess, what can happen when, a good idea meets a great platform like this. We started with probably about 40 or 50 people here in Waterford. And in 2019, in this current year, over 500,000 people will take part in a GIY program around the world. And we've about almost 1,000 locations on the ChangeX platform. So we're really proud to see what might happen in Chicago. And thanks very much, Neve, for the opportunity to say a few words.
No worries. Thank you, Nick. And then I know, is Elizabeth from Pollinator Partnership still on the line?
No, I think she just had to pop off, Neve.
She just jumped. Okay, so we might go to some of the local Chicago ideas then, because we have a couple of them here as well. So is Daniela from Openlands here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Daniela. Could you tell us a little bit about tree planters?
Sure. So I work for an organization called Openlands, which is a 57-year-old environmental conservation organization in Chicago. We work throughout the region, but a lot of our focus on our tree planting work happens within Chicago. And a huge effort is to educate and engage the community in caring for their urban canopy. And this is done through getting people to plant trees, because planting trees is a lot more fun than just going out and watering existing trees, but we really do a lot of education around that. And in the last close to 10 years now, we've had an insect called the emerald ash borer beetle, which has killed off probably almost 20% of the canopy within our region. And so it's really important because a lot of the forestry teams are busy at removing trees, and people are realizing that in terms of climate change, in terms of economic activities around there, that it's really important to make sure that trees are planted and actually cared for. And so with tree planters, it really engages the community to organize amongst themselves with their neighbors to find enough places on public space to start a tree planting. And so we have arborists and outreach people on our team that will help work alongside to make sure we get all the permits, to make sure everything is checked off, to host these really great tree planting events in the spring and the fall.
Brilliant. Thanks, Daniela. And then a second project of Openlands is building skill gardens, which is kind of, it does what it says on the tin. It's a program to support public schools in the Chicago area to develop a skill garden to learn about growing their own.
So far, we have a strong partnership with the Chicago Public Schools, but one of the things in the 1980s, in terms of maintenance, a lot of the green areas around Chicago Public Schools were covered with asphalt. And this was easier to manage versus having to go out and cut grass and water grass and replace grass. What we're seeing now is, because we are, built on a swamp, is that we have almost 40% of our city is now covered with impervious surfaces. And so this is a struggle on making sure that, especially this spring in Chicago, has been so wet and so many rainstorms, that people's basements do flood a lot. And so we try to do a couple things. One is create more green space outside of schools, but also get people to connect to nature right where they live. And so this has been something that we've been pushing for quite some time. We try to create garden teams at those schools. And what we're really hoping with this partnership is to encourage new communities and community gardeners to partner up with some of those Chicago Public Schools that maybe have had some gardens, maybe no longer organize around that, and to kind of rebuild and put more energy into those places. Because it's not only a resource for the community, but it's also a huge resource for teachers and students to do some of their work in outdoor classroom space.
Brilliant. It's very exciting. Thanks, Daniela. And the next one there is the Chicago River Cleanup, which is from Friends of the Chicago River. Joanne, could you tell us a little bit about that project? I'm not sure if Joanne is still with us. I know she was here.
I wonder, is Joanne muted?
It doesn't look like she's left.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just run through a couple of more of the ideas and we can come back. So we have Recycle Across America, which is actually an idea born in Minnesota, but which has spread now right across the US. And it's standardized recycling labels that can be used everywhere, but this program is particularly for schools, where schools can get the labels and also toolkits so that they can roll out this recycling program right across the school. Community Fridge is an idea that originates in the UK, has spread quite a lot right across Europe. And it is addressing the issues of food waste. And it's a fridge located either at a community centre, at a school, or at a university, where food that would otherwise be thrown out is kept so that people who need it can access it and prevent it from going to waste. And Walking School Bus is, I think that might be Joanne now. I'll just finish the last couple of these and then we'll hand over to the last couple of people who still have to speak. So Walking School Bus is an idea that I'm sure many of you have heard of, as I know it's working right across the US. And it's just a healthier, more environmentally sustainable way for kids to get to school by walking together rather than all going in individual cars. So I think that's all that I'm going to cover. Joanne, are you ready to jump in and tell us about the Chicago River Cleanup? No, okay, so I'll...
You might need to unmute yourself, Joanne.
What about Jackie from The Last Plastic Straw? Are you there, Jackie?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi, do you want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about The Last Plastic Straw?
Yeah, well, my name is Jackie Nunez. I started Last Plastic Straw, started talking about straws in 2010, created a Facebook page in 2011, and my whole intention was to inform people about the absurdity of single-use plastic, and I chose the straw as the catalyst for that. I got where I was overwhelmed by the problem, and I really had a strong sense that no one sets out to pollute the planet. We're just not aware. And so I picked the straw as a gateway tool, a learning tool, and a behavior change thing. But I also understand that every community is different, and I wanted to offer those tools and be open sourced with my project. So it started with Facebook, and then I got a web page in 2014, and we get a lot of momentum. And then, as you guys know, it's been pretty crazy ever since. We have a lot of worldwide momentum, and I just think that it was great to partner up with ChangeX to see the growth in the UK area and Ireland and in Europe, and places that even though I had contact with people there, to really have a platform that people can latch onto and be part of a community and make those changes. So I'm really excited to see ChangeX here in the US, and especially in areas that probably don't have a lot of momentum going on, inland areas. I mean, we've seen a lot on the coast. So I just think that this is a great platform in so many ways, and even for school groups, green clubs, and anyone who's interested. So I'm really excited.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
And Dara, from the local Repair Cafe in Chicago, do you want to tell us a little bit about Repair Cafe?
Yes, I'm happy to talk about Repair Cafe, although I must say it certainly didn't start here in Chicago. It started in the Netherlands.
Yes.
And I read about it and just think it's a fabulous idea, because it helps people to have repaired the items that they want and need. The other side of it is once our repair coaches look at something and they realize it can't be fixed, people are very grateful, because then they know, oh, that means I need to get a new shredder. So it's a totally volunteer run. We meet at a regional library here in Chicago once a month. It's always the second Saturday of the month, and we have someone who brings their sewing machine. We have a woman who does jewelry repair, and 2 or 3 generally handy guys and a gal who bring their own tools. And people seem to really have taken to it. People care about not throwing something away just because it's ripped or torn or it doesn't seem to work. So this is a worldwide movement. It's been going on. There's a huge one in Oak Park, which is a suburb of Chicago, that's in a senior center. So it just, it's something that's very sustainable, and
nice.
People enjoy it. As an aside, our local school, Waters School, tore up their concrete and blacktop many years ago, and they've received national recognition for the gardening that they do there. And I've worked with Open Lands with Danielle Pereira, doing wonderful work that their group does, and they help by giving, not only planting wonderful oak trees throughout the neighborhood, but also with a community garden that we started along the metro tracks. Union Pacific owns 33,000 miles of track, and we have a very long, skinny community garden along the tracks here, and an open orchard for people. So there's so very many different things people can do if the city doesn't get in their way. God bless our city.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Dara. It sounds like you've already started a bunch of these ideas.
I worked for the local
we'll
alderman here for 8 years, and he was totally into everything we could do green. And so I've been blessed to have been able to be involved in a lot of wonderful things. And when I say the city doesn't get in the way, I mean, you talk about permeable surfaces and the grass is just right next to concrete. We have open space here in the form of parkways. But the city doesn't make it easy to plant on a parkway or remove the grass and put in native plants or vegetables. So if we could get that, I think that is a huge resource.
This is Eddie. I'm curious as to the ward and the alderman that you're speaking of.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to look into what that alderman has planned.
Well, the alderman self-term limited himself when he first ran 8 years ago. So he put himself
Who was it?
and the other 4 of us out of work.
Who was it?
Amaya Pawar in the 47th.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody loves him, right?
Well, he's hard not to love. You know, I'm older probably than most of your mothers, and he so embraces some of what's needed in this world, and so I feel really fortunate that I was able to work for him and with him on so many. But yeah, if the city would get out of our way, it would be wonderful.
Right.
And there should also be an ordinance about permeable surfaces.
Yes, exactly. When they ripped up Argyle Street, we asked them if, instead of putting down asphalt, if they would let us have them put down permeable pavers and put a layer of sensors in there so that we could determine how much water was being put back into the green environment. Really cool project.
So perhaps things will change a bit with Lori and her new program and the, you know, taking power away from the aldermen. Maybe approaching her is probably a good step because they don't have power.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
It needs certain ordinances. The Aldi in my neighborhood wanted to expand, and they needed something or other, and the alderman said, "Okay, well, make your parking lot permeable." And I'll be darned if this Aldi doesn't have a permeable parking lot. It's like so easy.
Does the new alderman continue that policy? Who is the new alderman?
The new alderman is Matt Martin. He's a wonderful, smart young man, and he says he will continue a lot of these policies. But there's only so much an individual alderman can do. So
we can help.
Thanks.
We need more people like Dara.
Dara.
We need more people like Dara. We don't need any aldermen. We need more people like Dara.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just conscious of time. So I'm just going to ask Katie from the ChangeX team to just run through the last 3 ideas here on this slide.
Yeah, of course. So unfortunately, Elizabeth from Pollinator Partnership had to jump off early. So I'll just quickly go through the 2 Pollinator Partnership ideas. One is creating a pollinator friendly habitat in your community. So this can be in your community garden, farm, school, park, business, to increase pollinator health in your area. So this one's taken off really well in Arizona already. It's one of the most popular ideas there over the last couple of weeks. And the other one is called Bee Friendly Farming. So that's a program that supports farmers to promote pollinator health on their farms. And they receive recognition and consumer support for it. And it's applicable to all sized farms. So small farms that are just farmed to farmers market, to large industrial sized farms, and to urban farms and rural farms as well. And finally, then we have Open Orchard, which is an idea that comes from the UK. And it connects communities through fruit and fruit planting. So in Chicago, this would be particularly apples, pear, and plum trees primarily. So planting fruit trees in public spaces. And that is our 12 ideas.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone for your contributions. And yeah, we're really excited to see these ideas begin to take off around Chicago. We'll just hand back to Chyla now.
Sure. So we do have some time for Q&A, and I think actually there's not been a whole lot of questions that have come on the chat, but I do hear a lot of reactions. So I thought we could open it up if people directly wanted to ask questions or had a comment or a reaction or further probing on any of the ideas that you heard.
Well, this is Eddie. I'll just say my reaction is, wow, there's so much here. You guys have so much to offer. Where do we begin? And how do we connect the dots? Adam knows that I'm very heavily involved with the Chicago community, specifically the Inglewood community.
Yep.
I've I'm the son of a pastor who did good work in that area. He, as the gentleman mentioned, his folks matriculated to Chicago in '58. My dad matriculated to Chicago in 1959, and this was the area he he lived in. He moved to the Beverly area, but we still have an after-school program, a safe home, 2 gardens, and a church. So it's an underserved area, and
Yeah.
he planted himself there 38 years ago. He's no longer with us. My mom is still there, and there's so much that could be done. And you guys have offered so much. I'm just perplexed at where to begin. So thank you for what you've done here.
Yeah, no, that was my sentiment for you, Eddie. That this is incredible resource. I know that after the call, there will be an email that will have all of the sort of relevant information and the links. But I'm curious, as you were talking about Englewood, even as you're thinking about this, are there people or community groups that are already coming to your mind that you're saying they would love to know about this idea and try to replicate it in Englewood?
Well, the one that came to my mind, and I had so many, but my mom is the president of her block club in the Washington Heights area. And that area is where I grew up, and they have so many strong block clubs. One of the ideas was approaching those block clubs to see how we can do sustainability projects utilizing, those strong connections that are already there.
Great idea.
That was one idea that just rolled off.
No, that's a great idea. Do you know if there is, and I'm asking everybody on the call who are from Chicago, like, is there a place where you could sort of find information on all of the block clubs or the community action?
Yeah, I know that because, each alderman usually has a website.
Yeah.
And my particular alderman in the 6th ward for England is Alderman Sawyer. And he sent out a newsletter, and they usually have block club sort of gatherings that they convene. I'm a personal friend of Anthony Beale. Actually, I hired him at Allstate Insurance Company, his first job. So I have a pretty good connection with the aldermen and some of the people in the know who can set that stage.
That's great.
And I have another idea here too that covers a lot of these. The Chicago Botanic Gardens are building around the city these sustainability spaces, and it combines things like, think about an urban farm, but on a very big scale. Like they'll have a space where you have small lettuce plants sitting next to a small tilapia tank that are symbiotically feeding each other, and then when the lettuce grows bigger, they move it into a greenhouse, and when the tilapia get bigger, they move them into these big tanks that continue to feed it. And that's just one example of the things that they do. But then they build these spaces, and then they put a co-working space in there, and then a retail space in there, so that the folks that the folks that are in the neighborhood that want to learn sustainable careers in sustainability and food can do that. They have one in North Lawndale. They have another one somewhere closer to Englewood, but not in Englewood. I don't remember where.
Yep.
Also,
the other thing that the young lady who was speaking about the repair venue.
Yes.
I think, is there a potential to identify a location in the city to replicate that kind of venue in the city?
We meet in our regional library up here on Lincoln Avenue. But any church or library, you just want a space that they can give you, a few tables and chairs and outlets. We accept tips so we can buy more lamp parts.
So I could volunteer space, a church in the middle of Englewood. So I mean, like I said, you guys have so much to offer, and so many things can connect the dots. We can start with a pilot. And Adam and I, know each other from work, but being in the city doing advocacy work. So certainly help connect the dots.
Come visit us any second Saturday of the month at Seltzer Library. We're there between 10 and noon. We'd love to have you. Also, I cannot say enough about working through the aldermen because they have huge email lists. Also, there's a group called Chicago Community Gardens. It's a nonprofit group, and all of these orchard and bees and all of that. We do that in our community garden at the Montrose Metro Community Garden, and I know that Chicago, the community gardens would be.
I'm a beneficiary of that program. It started in Chicago as what they call a large lots program.
Right.
If you had a building, and my dad happened to have a foundation, the Safe Home, and you had vacant land on each side of those, you could get those properties for $1.
And it got better, Eddie, because now they changed the policies so that it's anywhere within a block radius. And one of the things you can do with it is create an urban garden. Paul Jacobson did a whole presentation on this.
Yeah, and where I'm going is, and I'm on a mailing list, that's already established. There is a laundry list of folks who already have these properties.
Yes.
And I can tell you, some have worked on them, some have not. Those folks would certainly take the help to actually, hold true to the mission of what they got those properties for.
Yes, and it's all over the city. Now, being on the north side, we don't have empty lots. We don't have space. That's why the parkways, if the city would allow it, the parkways could make all the difference. Because I live along the river. It's, we've been taking care of the river here, riverbank neighbors between Montrose and Belle Plaine for 25 years, and all pollinators and native plants across the river in Horner Park. They just put in a big native area, and the park districts are doing this all over. So, I think that grassroots is important, but also understanding that we can do this with the help of people who are involved already.
Do they let you use
I'm
the
raising my
boulevard?
hand to volunteer.
Do they let you use the boulevard too, or just the parkways?
The boulevards.
Like if you think of Garfield Boulevard, how it
Yes.
has all these boulevards have this enormous median strip of grass.
Right.
I've actually seen one
Do they
in
let you
use.
use those?
Yeah, I've actually seen one in use, Adam, over in Woodlawn. Where they have the Woodlawn Garden and they have the boulevards. They've actually done some art along the boulevards in that area.
That's Bill Generis's project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see we have a question in the chat I want to make sure we get to before the end of the call. It's a question for ChangeX around the deadline for when activity needs to be completed. So Anne Liza is saying they have a 30+ sales team in Chicago would like to suggest a group to adopt a challenge. So maybe Neve or Paul or Katie from ChangeX, you want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, I can jump in. So there isn't actually a deadline. So how it works is that the funds are allocated on a first come, first served basis. So as groups complete the 30-day challenge, then there's one last opportunity for someone else to do it. So we would expect, just given the demand that there has been in Arizona, we'd expect that the fund will all be allocated pretty quickly. So within maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So we'd encourage people just to get on there as quickly as possible. But we can maybe share with you in a week or two's time how much time we'd expect there to be left. But for now, we'd just say to get on there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think it might be worth just clarifying around how Microsoft staff are able to engage with this. So there's well, first of all, Microsoft staff can start any of the ideas at any time, but from a funding perspective, because this came as a 501c3 grant, there's actually a restriction on Microsoft employees being in receipt of the funding. Now, to your point earlier, Adam, we think that this is a great employee engagement opportunity, but we need to structure it in a slightly different way in future. But anyway, right now, anybody can start the idea. To start an idea as a Microsoft employee, the funding is not available, but you can join any of the projects that are in receipt of funding as a Microsoft employee. So hopefully that just clears that up a little bit.
So
And you can use
let me
your matching dollars too, right?
Yeah.
Your matching employee time.
But if I may, Adam, I'd like to make a clarification there because I'm very knowledgeable of 501(c)(3)s. Matter of fact, I oversee a couple of them. I mean, you could be a Microsoft employee, and I'm a case in point, but you're working on behalf of the community. For example, in my place, I'm a community zealot. I'll call it for Inglewood, the West Inglewood area. Yes, I'm an employee, but the work that I'm doing is really focused on the community. So, from what I'm gathering is you're looking for someone to sort of spearhead and connect. That it could be an employee who's doing that. So just that
Absolutely,
clarification.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean we definitely want like all the Microsoft people on the call, or anybody that's interested to help to spread their words in their respective communities. And there's some brilliant suggestions there around like through the Alderman newsletter databases, targeting kind of organized, block groups sounds ideal. Existing networks of community gardens, etc. All that sounds like exactly the right type of networks to get the word out in.
And,
Exactly. Yep.
and the Microsoft employees are, of course, welcome to join the key organizing teams. So each person who starts an idea needs 4 people to come on board with them as part of the challenge. So a Microsoft employee can be one of those 4 and play a key role in starting the project. They just can't be in receipt of funds as the individual who's actually starting the project.
There's a follow-up question from Annalisa, if you can answer. So it says, so to clarify, we can mobilize a group of employees to volunteer and have our company match policy to match any volunteer time. However, we're not eligible for the actual funding. The time can be matched, but they're not eligible for the actual funding unless they work with somebody else who's launching the idea.
Yeah, I don't actually have a clear enough understanding of how that works internally. So I don't know if I can ask Adam or Mary or Holly to take that one.
I'll leave that to Mary.
Yeah, so that does look like if they can sign up with or work with a nonprofit, the nonprofit needs to apply for the funds, is my understanding, because they're going to be leading the project, leading the work. Microsoft employees would sign up as a volunteer for that particular nonprofit that leads it. And as a volunteer, if they do the work on off times, lunch, after work, or on the weekend, then they can match their hours to that nonprofit. So it has nothing to do with the fund, really. It's just about supporting that nonprofit. Right now, what we want employees to do is just spread the word and let all these organizations in Chicago sign up and get this money while it's available. But I think the key there about volunteering, you have to volunteer with a nonprofit that signed up to do a project.
So I think the ask here for Microsoft employees is to spread the information about this challenge to as many local organizations and nonprofits as you can through your sort of personal networks.
So for instance, if you wanted to do a river cleanup, you would go to Friends of Chicago River, tell them about this, and they would go for the grant, and then you work with them.
Great. It's a great example.
Yeah, you can actually do all that directly through ChangeX, and then you get connected to Friends of Chicago River, so you don't need to do it twice. It can all happen through ChangeX.
Right.
And I would just say, how do you want to do it? Because Chicago's large, right? Do you want to pilot and target? For example, meeting the aldermen have a schedule. You can meet with them directly. I love to broker representatives from the org with the aldermen and with a sit down, and they know where their priority areas are. You can go to the heart of the matter through the people in charge.
Yeah, so Paul and Neve, it might make sense to connect, for you both to connect perhaps offline and maybe with Holly, with Eddie, because I think there's a lot of good ideas in terms of how to make sure that this gets into the water, figuratively. I am keeping an eye on the clock, and I know people probably have meetings to go to, so I just want to make sure that we wrap this up. Everybody on the call is going to get a follow-up with all the information that was shared today, as well as links and other pertinent info. But I just want to make sure we take a moment to thank everybody who presented, particularly the ChangeX team, the Microsoft team, and all of the pioneers on the ground who generously shared their ideas here today. So thank you so very much for opening up your creativity to all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
Holly.
so much. So
Great.
Bye.
exciting.
Thank you, ChangeX, and thanks to all our
Yeah.
speakers. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Be in
Thanks,
touch.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.